Aloha. It's Labor Day. Happy Labor Day. Got the old St. George, man. I believe I'm of English and Irish heritage. And I don't know if you're paying attention to what's going on over in England, but it ain't pretty, man. And it needs to get worse. There's no solving any of that politically, I don't believe. And so this is to support the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, which I'd recommend. Very interesting. Strange name. Took me a long time I knew about it, and before I actually started watching it regularly. But I like what they're doing. Carl Benjamin. Was he Sargon of Akkad? He has his own thing he does too. Which, the weird names and shit, but I get, Oh, damn. You okay, buddy? Damn, one of my little kitties. He just turned a year. My two youngest boys here, they were born, one was born on August 29th and the other was born on August 30th. No exaggeration for that. It happened like that. Although I do kind of forget which one was which. But he's been puking up all of food the last couple days. Maybe just today or yesterday, but God, he's skinny. My little orange boy, Donald. So I'm concerned. Seems generally healthy, but that's somewhat unusual. I usually give all my cats a snack. I got 5 cats in here. They're all from the same mother. And I suspect several of them are the same father. I got a fully black girl and a black boy, so I'm assuming they possibly are from the same father. And I got 2 orange, Billy and Donald. And I'm not sure they actually are of the same father. Because Donald is a lot lighter orange. And I had another orange cat that showed up right before I moved, which I think he was a boy. And I had a bigger one that I'm pretty sure is Billy Whiteshoe's father. And he had the big face, with the big jowls or whatever. Then there was another cute one that showed up when I came back, right after I came back after the hurricane that we had last year. I forget what that was, Ian or something. But they were, the neighbor across the street had his hedge got all ripped apart. They were that disgusting Mexican family. And that was just one disgusting Mexican family. The rest of them were all just normal families. But they had it all piled up along the front of they have a wire fence, just a traditional see-through fence, the wire, the cage sort of. But it was completely, all their hedge was piled up there. And these 2 cats, there was one tiny one and one bigger one. And I'm not even sure they were related. But the bigger one wasn't too big. But I think he was a boy. And he was pretty nice. And then the smaller one was always never really let me pet him or anything. He was always, I called him Scooter because he'd always scooting around, but he was there for the food. And I think there's a possibility he may have been Donald's father, but who knows? Nonetheless, they had the same mother, so. And then, of course, there's beautiful Lola. We've seen her in several of my recent videos. Over on the freaking alley, maybe. I'm not sure where that one showed up. Yeah, I think it was that one. But anyway, she's a beautiful, the tortoiseshell, long-haired tortoiseshell. She is just the most gentle little cat and to pet and the softest. She is just... Won't let me hold her. I can hold her for like 10 seconds, but she loves me. I know. She won't leave me alone, I'll have to put her down, but then she just rubs up against you. It's weird. They still got that street in them, Although Zigaboo, who I originally thought was a girl who was born with Donald, and he was one of the ones born a year ago. He is the coolest cat I have, and I mean cool as in cool. I've never seen him. He gets into it a little with his sister. Angie gets into it with everybody. And I call him the cucumber. He's the cuke, he's cool as a cucumber, just mellow, but he's kind of the one who wakes me up every morning. I feed him at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. And a lot of times I go to bed late, like it's probably after 11 o'clock now. And he's the one who's there at like 7:15. Yeah. And then the worst part is I'll kind of try and, I'll roll around, pet him a little bit and stay in bed. And then he does that for a half hour, at which point I'm up, and I'll usually grab the phone and start looking at, see what I've got for replies from shit I've said on YouTube. And then he'll lie down on the pillow and just be pretty mellow, and it's like, dude, you wish you did that till 8 o'clock. But anyway, he's cool. He's great. So I got a new neighbor behind me. They came in today, unfortunately, because the old neighbor got evicted and left Saturday. I was hoping I'd have a little more time of nothing back there, because this looks like a bit of a meathead. Like there's some trees back there, or they're more like a bush, but kind of grow into a tree. Kind of that Florida thing. It's like a cluster of whatever, and it goes up. And this meathead, like, there's one right behind me, and then there's one a little bit over where his trailer kind of back, and he backs right into it and leaves it there, and I just don't understand that. Pressing up against a tree, he just could have been like, "Oh, pull forward 2 feet," so that's not happening. And he's gonna have the ants walking onto his trailer. Not that you can really avoid that, but they certainly come off those trees better. And it just puts him 2 feet closer to me than I thought he would need to be. Big guy too. I saw him out there. I haven't talked to him. Hopefully he's cool. But just one of those big. The only thing that concerned me is that, there's a big white pickup truck that pulled the trailer. And then they've got like a Toyota or something. Not, kind of a smallish car, but it's like done up, like lowered down and tinted windows, and people like that. Sorry, it's a tell. Usually it's like, come on. But anyway. So I guess we'll talk about why I have a new neighbor. That's kind of the main story. But also went up to Charlotte's Web Pub on Saturday and played 2 sets. And I got to be honest with you, they were 2 of the best sets I feel that I've done. I just enjoyed them. Felt good about it. A couple train wrecks. First set, I opened up with Rockin' in the Free World, because I did that rant on Neil Young, and I'm going to do his songs. And it was an interesting, I watched the first couple songs, and it felt like I was fighting it the whole time, like to get my voice and fucking going, and the harmonica, I'd play the harmonica on that one. I'd do it acoustic, and I hadn't done it in a while. So the first part, I play harmonica. It's kind of, and by the third verse, it was I do it after each verse and at the end, and the last one was right on. But it came out well. But I felt like I was fighting it as I was singing it to get get going, and it felt good that I fought it, and I felt and it sounded all right. But then I did Lola. And that was a train wreck. I got Lola down, but of course I haven't played it in like a month, and I haven't practiced it at all, because I'm like, I got it down. And I just need to get it down more. Judge for yourself. That's over on the Freakin' Howley channel. And then then I went into Ship of Fools by Jerry and the Dead, and that went solidly. Probably the most solid one, because that's the first song I ever learned. I was determined to get all the words down without having to read them, and that was the first one I did back in Bonita Springs. I used to go out every night, because it was beautiful, gated community where my dad, when I was staying with him at his house there, and just go out for like an hour every night. It's all old people, so they're all in bed, and I go out and play acoustic guitar out in the street. But it's not, it's a street in a gated community, so there's not the only people come down there is they coming home from eating or something. And that was the first tune. I just remember and that's a good one where it's three verses and it kind of makes sense. It's not like the verses are all independent of each other. It's not like a story, but it they're just three distinct verses, so it's kind of easy to. I don't know. I got it down, but I kept fucking it up at all these Charlotte's Web's gigs. I think this was the first time where I think I got all the words right. So that went well, and then I did a couple. I did I Am the Walrus for the first time, and I think it went pretty damn good for the first time playing, and I had it down pretty good. In songs like that, you kind of know all the inflections, so as long as you just got to take your time and let it sink in, and I also added another Flatlanders tune. Had my hopes up high. Had my hopes up high. Never thought that. Good. And here's the deal with that. I learned that day and wrote the words down and started playing it. But I was going on YouTube I was looking at Julia, which I do by the Flatlanders, and I did that. Did I? I think I did that as well Saturday. But anyway, I was just going on YouTube to just kind of go over that. I wanted to check the little riff you do there, and head held up high. I had my hopes up high came up first, and I was like, this is just fucking cool. They're so good. If you get nothing else out of this that I speak when I talk about music, you gotta check out the Flatlanders. It's just good man music. And women will enjoy it too, but I mean they're just the three of them, they write and sing the songs, and a lot of times they all do a verse in the songs. Butch Hancock writes most of the tunes they do, but Joey Lee writes a lot, and Jimmy Dale Gilmore writes a few. He was more like the main singer somewhat, but not really. And he's the guy who was in the Big Lebowski on the bowling team with the scraggly hair. Jimmy Dale Gilmore. Saw him and Dave Alvin. They've toured together now, and they played Skipper's Smokehouse up in Tampa. That was good. That was great. In fact, I went there to see Uncle John's band, the Grateful Dead tribute, and Dave Alvin and Jimmy Dale Gilmore were playing that night, who I should have been aware of. I should have been going there for that. So that was serendipitous, and it was great. And, but yeah, the head had my hopes up high. It was just too good, and I'm like, I'm doing this one. Check it out. There's like a whole episode of Austin City Limits with them on it. And then there's actually a concert from France that came up as I was watching that. It starts suggesting like an hour and a half show. And it's great because the guy, it seems like a French promoter because he comes on as an old man and says something, and then he goes to the episode, and it looks like it's him 20 years ago or 30 years ago, and he's introduced. It's all in French, and he's like, Joey Lee. That was bad. He does the Jimmy Dale Gilmore and Butch Hancock as well, but Joey Lee, like one word, it was just funny. And it's just a whole concert of them playing, and it was great. So I checked out the Flatlanders, man. You'll like it. It's just awesome. And all those guys have their own careers, too, and all those albums are great. I have, like, every album. The Flatlanders have, like, 4 or 5 CDs, and Joey Lee has got a ton. He's got, like, 20 or something. And Jimmy Dale Gilmore's probably got more like 12-ish. And Butch Hancock's got maybe more like 10. But Butch Hancock, he's like a teacher in Texas. They're from Lubbock. And an artist and stuff. He's like, and he doesn't have a website. He's got a Facebook page, and I don't go on Facebook. So, the other two have like an official website. In fact, I just got another Joey Lee's latest CD in a t-shirt because it's just too cool. I had to get it. Love and Freedom. Total libs, but somewhat normal. But yeah, they kind of, they're not libtards, but Joey Lee especially, I guess he's a little more of the, surprisingly, because they're in the Flatlanders. You ever been through Lubbock, Texas? It's flat. And growing up in that situation like that, It's flat and there's no trees. So and they talk about this, but I've seen it myself. You've got horizons that are flat as a friggin' pancake with no trees. So you just see that'll shape, and if you're an artistic type, that's going to shape you, man. It's going to influence you heavily. Whereas Florida is pretty flat, but there's trees, there's shit growing on everything, so. So yeah, the Flatlanders, you definitely. I've been getting into. I've been a long time fan of Peter Rowan, but I'm kind of filling in a lot of his stuff because it just becomes clear that his stuff is so solid and just good and great and solid and just all mostly acoustic, and it's just killer. But if I can recommend anything for the Peter Rowan, he did 2 CDs with Tony Rice, like the Peter Rowan Quartet or something. And both of those are incredible. And he does a couple of the older tunes, from, I think, Midnight Moonlight's on one of them and stuff. But those two, You Were Meant for Me, I think, is one of them. And the other one is maybe Peter Rowan Quartet or something. But I highly recommend. I mean, Tony Rice is, probably just an incredible acoustic guitarist. There's no need to say the best ever or anything. But basically all the acoustic guitarists since him Tony Rice is their idol. And he started, he was in when David Grisman, back in the mid-70s, the David Grisman Quartet was like a huge, or was it quintet then or quartet? But his first album was like a very influential, and Tony Rice played on it. A couple other guys, maybe Todd Phillips or something, Darrell Anger, I'm not sure. I know Tony Rice was on there, but just incredibly solid music. But that was the thing. David Grisman kind of, he came back into the mainstream somewhat in the right around 1990 when Garcia and him started doing their records together. And that's another great album, the Garcia Grisman, all of them, but especially that first one, the Garcia Grisman, where they're doing Thrill Is Gone and a version of Friend of the Devil, Russian Lullaby, Arabia. Just incredible. Walking Boss. But he was a huge figure in the acoustic music world, which is not going to make you as famous, but he wasn't riding Jerry Garcia's coattails at all, I remember seeing Grisman Quintet with he had the Spanish guitarist. What was his name? Edgar, I don't know. But at the Sanders Theater in Harvard. That was a good show because they had Bob Weir played with Bruce Coburn. I think that was the same show. Don't quote me on that. I might have seen 2 shows there, but it's the only 2 times or one time I was on the campus of Harvard University. Spent a lot of time, I've been to Somerville Square there enough. Is that what it is? Or Harvard Square? The House of Blues and stuff. They had a record shop there too I went to and bought a lot, wasted a lot of money on bootleg Grateful Dead CDs. I found that shop and it was like in the early 90s and when I was at the height of it, so I went and bought a lot of CDs. I mean, a lot of them were good, but a couple of them were literally audience recordings out of the pocket of the guy. Or one specifically, I bought this show, I think it's March 11th, 1992, at the Nassau Coliseum on Long Island there. And it's just the most horrid audience recording you can imagine. And the other problem you have, a couple of them, like I got this cool one, it was from July 2nd, 1986. I think it's in Washington, D.C., and they do this great version of Satisfaction for the Encore, which is a tune they only did a handful of times. It was always a fun special. And this one's great because they all do intros. Like Bobby introduces Phil and makes says something, and Jerry introduces Bobby. He's like, one of my favorite people in the whole world, Mr. Bob Weir. And it sounds like everything's a little sharp, as in it was sped up. And that sucks, because that was one thing I ended up, my last cassette deck, which I still have. But I got you got to get the pitch thing on there, and I went through. So what you'd have to do then, you take the CD, record it to tape, tune up a guitar. Is how I did it. And then you take one of the songs you can play, and you take the little pitch corrector and you dial it down to get it to where it's in the key. It's got to be. The Dead use all the major keys mostly. A, G, and then then I'd record it to another cassette so that it was in. But the problem you have, like my two things I play tapes on now, one of them seems to be right, but the other one does play fast. So it just that's kind of a heel on the cassettes that you run into that crap a lot. They play at different speeds, and when you're playing just a boombox, you're gonna get that. Not with a high end. Hopefully not with a high end cassette deck. So that was it. So yeah, I did that. So yeah, so good gig on Saturday. And apparently the cook, the guy who runs, they have a food truck out front, and he had a heart attack, Eduardo or something. Because I ran this lady, Joey, who was from up at Crazy Acres in Zolfo Springs, that I stayed in the same place as them. She was there. She came out. Unfortunately, I was doing Sugar Magnolia for the last song of the set, and it went pretty well. It was, I corrected all my problems with the Sugar Magnolia for the most part. So that went well, and I I played my new song. I wrote another verse, 2 new verses. I don't know if I did both of them. For my Time to Go song about that place. It was a bit of a train wreck, but the Lola was pretty rough. But other than that, I think everything went pretty well, and I debuted the I Am the Walrus, had my hopes up high. I also did Positively 4th Street for the first time. I don't know if I did that in the first or second set. Check that out on the freaking alley and find out. And I think there was another song I debuted, which I cannot recall at the time. But all in all, very solid, I thought. I just, And I did Standing on the Moon, and I just threw it all in there. Gulf of America, and I can see... And on the bridge there, it's like I can see Hollywood burning, and I was like California. I just got all the shit in there that I could, because he mentions all, you're standing on the moon looking down at Earth sort of scenario for the song. The Gulf of America is tiny as a tear, and the coast of California is somewhere over here. I thought of that on the spot. I hadn't actually made that adjustment. Whereas on my lyric sheet, I actually crossed out Mexico, put America, and the California, I was just like, yeah, kind of having fun. And I spoke out about Neil and Bruce Springsteen again, so I just think it's wrong what they do, man. They don't have any. I feel what Trump's doing in D.C., even the mayor is seated or accepted that it was helpful and needed, and there's plenty of videos of black residents there going, thank you, and this was great. So for somebody like Neil Young, who's lived in a bubble of privilege and of people kissing his ass for 50 years, which is great. I love him. I love his music. But he doesn't have any idea, man. I think that's really bad. And if I have a video where I ranted out about him on this channel, I guess maybe I'll attach that because I think they have a thing related video or something. And I was pissed, and I am pissed because I'm pissed off because I have everything he's put out musically. And I play a bunch of his songs, and I love him. And I always thought he was cool. I knew his politics were left-leaning. But shit like that. Like, he put out this new song, Crime. Talking about crime in the White House. And I didn't even listen to it. I watched the video of it. But it's mainly, it seems to be about the DC. And I'm like, dude, no. Anybody who's been there and has to live there is very happy about what's going on. So shut the fuck up. You don't have to deal with this shit. And You're telling people who have to deal with it and have no choice but to deal with it that they should deal with it? Fuck you, dude. What the fuck? So, I don't want to get bogged down in that, but. And I did both Springsteen songs, I do. I did both Hungry Heart and Pink Cadillac, which are the only two I'll ever do. And said a few words about him. He's a little more disappointing because he hasn't written a good song in like 40 years either, in my opinion. And I don't know. I have a couple of those newer albums, and no, I haven't spent a lot of. His music's not that good, man. It never has been. You know, that's why a lot of people's favorite album is Nebraska, because it's kind of the most sparse, just guitar. But of course, he has cheesy synthesizer. You know, you just those sounds and it. So you know, like one thing that really pissed me off about Bruce right when it happened, he did that Coast of Tom Joad album and he went out on a solo tour. He literally had a guy playing keyboards on every song behind the curtain and passed it off. I mean, you could hear it, but I don't even know if he introduced the guy after the show. That's just the fuck. What the fuck, man? What the fuck? And everybody's just like, Ruth, you're so great. Fuck that, man. I've never liked that about that. You know, think about My Hometown, which I liked. That was, you know, I was in high school when that came out. But I was always bothered, and I'm always distracted by that synthesizer sound in the back. You don't need it. And it's all it is. It's kind of like white noise, you know? Just to fill in. It sounds like a thing of, you know, your lack of confidence in your song or something. You know, I've never liked that. I don't really like I like electric guitars and microphones and amplifiers and shit, but I never really liked the fake where you just press a button to get a sound and you're not really making that sound. I don't go for that. That's why I'm so disappointed with so much of the music now with you should check out if you care about any of this stuff, and many of you don't, and it's, I think, an integrity issue, to be honest with you, if you're just accepting of, like, the fact that, look, I agree. I have no problem with Taylor Swift's existence, and she does have professional songwriters and usually a team helping her, but she more or less writes her own songs, and she can play guitar and stuff. But she mimes her concerts, dude. It's a fact. And I don't respect that. You know, and I don't respect somebody who's like, oh, it's just nice to see him, be there in person with them or see him live. And that they can't be expected to sing every show. They're on fuck you. People used to. And it's enjoyable, man. So no, I'm not going to be accepting of that, nor of people who say, oh, relax or the fuck you. You know, this isn't just go and be in the same room as fucking Pete Townsend or David Gilmour. Because allegedly, there's a great channel, Wings of Pegasus. I've mentioned this before, and the guy's name's Phil. F-I-L. And he's got a classic 80s hairdo, man. But he does these things, and he's very legitimate. And David Gilmour's using pitch correction. Billy Gibbons is not even singing legs at ZZ Top concert, and it's actually alleged that he's never sung at live, ever, from like 1986 till now. Which I don't know, and it sucks because I just went through a huge Billy Gibbons thing like 6 months ago where I went to his website because he put out a bunch of solo albums, and they're all great. I love fucking Billy Gibbons and ZZ Top. But, finding out that shit sucks. Those aren't the people I want to support. And, you know, I'm still going to listen to and enjoy Billy Gibbons, but it sucks that he's that sort of guy. But at the same time, if you delve into Billy Gibbons singing, the way he dresses and the guitars he plays, you're not all that surprised. Like this guy Guthrie Trapp has he's a good guitarist, Nashville guitarist, young guitar, you know, probably in his 30s, late 30s, 40s, but he tours with, he's friends with Tom Bukovac, who has his own channel, who's another session guitarist in Nashville. Great channel. His channel's good. Homeschooling, Uncle Larry, Chorus Echo or something is. But he toured with Billy Gibbons on his solo tour, and he's well known for playing a Telecaster. You know, that's kind of a thing for guitarists, specifically the Telecaster. Like Danny Gatton's another guy you should check out. He's dead, but he was like one of the most famous in the 70s and 80s. He ended up killing himself, kind of one of those troubled guys, but he was one of the most brilliant guitarists ever, Danny Gatton, Gatton. But Guthrie Trapp, he puts out a lot of videos. He's on his channel, and he'll have backstage stuff with Billy Gibbons, and he'll just show shit from the side of the stage, because he kind of would come out for like the last 5 songs or something. But Billy Gibbons is playing this like a Telecaster, and it's got like a TV screen under the strings. It's kind of cool, but it's also kind of cheesy. And I remember seeing them at Providence Civic Center in like 86 or 5 or 6 or 7. And they always had this thing where, they had a big explosion on stage, and Dusty Hill's bass and Billy Gibbons' guitar were just spinning on something they weren't on. It was like the last song or something. Kind of cheesy. I've never been one for that. The Dead do it. I fell in love with the Dead because that's exactly it, man. Go up there and make good music. Fucking don't dress up. Be comfortable, and we're not up there. Other people want a show. I'm not going to begrudge them that, but nothing like a Grateful Dead concert. It was as good as it'll ever be, and they did it right like how I would want my heroes to do it. And that was the thing. They were like your friends, but just talented, but with a good sense of humor. Like for me, one of the songs that turned me on to the Dead, hearing it, the bootlegs, that famous Harper College, May 2nd, 1970. And that is my dad's birthday, is May 2nd. Is that weird? That's weird. I almost can't. My mother's is September 2nd, which was today? No, tomorrow. Might be today now. It could be after 12. And I have a great recording from the Dead Hour of a show of September 2nd, 1968. And I remember writing Mom's birthday on the cassette there. But that Harper College was a huge show, that 1970. It's like one of the handful of versions of James Brown's It's a Man's World, Pigpen singing. But they do Dancing in the Street, and I always loved the early dance. They changed it to the disco Dancing in the Streets when they came back from their hiatus in 76, in 77, and 78. May have played it a few times in 79. But the original version was like Bobby singing, and like Phil and Jerry doing the background vocals. And I just loved, because it's what is it? Martha and the Vandellas, these very trained singers. And then you got Bobby singing, whoa, and then Jerry and Phil, doing the background vocals, 2 fucking guys, and it's just rough as fuck, but it's just great. It just sounds fun, And that was, that was one of the songs that brought me in. I'm like, these guys are just fun and cool and down to earth, and it just worked for me so much. I always loved that. I love those early 70, 69, 70, 71 dancing. I love them all. That's Bill Walton's answer. What's your favorite Dead tune? The Next One. And he wasn't confusing the other one. The next one as in whatever. The next one. So that's that. And then today they had a little cookout. The woman from the story I'm about to tell about the incident with my old neighbor, she's like the neighborhood watch lady, Becky. She invited me as her guest. Yeah, I don't know. But because it's very nice. But they had a little cookout up at the clubhouse here today, and it was a little weird. You went up there and it was all like homemade salads and stuff, potato salads, beans and stuff, and just a bunch of fried hot dogs, but they were all just in a thing. It wasn't like the grill was over there and you're watching it. It was all kind of prepared. They didn't have anything to drink. That was a little weird. Thankfully, Carol, one of the ladies, and these are all, most of them are older. Becky's probably in my age range. Most of the other people were older, and we're talking some real old ones. But she did get me a cold bottle of water. But that was a little weird. I thought there'd be a cooler of Cokes or something, you know. Because I have a cooler of Coke that I could have brought my Coke, but I just didn't think I'd need to. I think that was a normal assumption that there'd be drinks, but it was good. Good piece of cake. It was good. It was nice just to shoot the shit with some of the new people, you know. I was just making friends. You know, Bob and Carolyn, one lady Carolyn, they apparently have the house, the little unit that everybody goes over. They're inviting me over. They're probably 10 to 15 years older than me, so it's not like we're going to go over there and... Let's just say I'd be very surprised if they broke out a bong. What's up, bud? You okay? Careful, sweetie. This is Donald. He's seeming really skinny. I don't know if he's dehydrated. I hope he's okay. But he's been barfing up his food. But it's strange because I usually I got these two little plates I put out with the, you know, it's usually nice balls, huh? I got a one can in the morning, one can at night, you know, the tuna fish size can. And the last 2 nights, and it's been the same type, and it's been in this cabinet. It should be fine. I don't know if it was up there. Hasn't been too long. It's been a month or something, but... And it shouldn't have been too warm. But anyway, they haven't cleaned the plates like they usually do. And then he's been puking up. So I don't know if maybe there was something wrong with those couple cans. Hopefully, last thing I need is a vet bill. But he is skinny, man. His brother's the same age, as I said. They just turned 1. And his brother is definitely bigger and filled out more. But he seems pretty normal here. So hopefully there's just some bad food or something. How about those balls, huh? I got to get him and his brother fixed. But I got the 2 girls fixed. So they went through a period several months ago where Zigaboo was mounting his sister repeatedly. I mean, just nonstop. It was crazy. Thankfully, we haven't had any more of that. And it must have been Angie, the sister, causing that, because once I got her fixed, she became nicer and snugglier, although not too snuggly. But she lets me like before that, I'd be lucky if I would even see her. She'd stay under the couch. You went to touch her, she makes these weird sounds. And now, as soon as I picked her up at the vet the day I got her fixed, she was like just a different cat. And I don't think it was a different cat. Just struck me right then, but no. But now she's like sleeps on the bed with me, not right with me, but I have like one of those you know, that material they make, you know, that you get a lot, some cheap thing that I just put down like a sweatshirt, and they sleep on that. You know, the recycled material that's like plastic, but it's really soft, and she sleeps on that all the time. And she just lets me pet her. And she didn't used to really do that. What's up, sweetie? But, so here's the deal. So here's what happened. So when I moved in here on, I think, the 31st of July or the 1st of August. I forget which day it was that I left there. But anyway, I was up, it's 20 miles north up in Zolfo Springs. So I come down here to Arcadia. And of course, I had a pretty good prep to get out of there. But I ended up having to change the battery in my RV because it just sat there and got beat by the sun for 5 months, 4 months. 5 months. And so anyway, I get down here, it was like 9:30 or so, you know, so it's dark. So I go out and plug my the power in, and I didn't hook up the water or anything, or the sewage. And this girl pulls up, who lives behind me, like right at that time, you know, in a brand new orange, you know, the Toyota Jeep CJ or whatever it is. And she just starts talking to me. But I mean, not like talking at me, you know, like I'm trying to kind of, you know, as, you know, have a conversation, so to speak, as I'm cooking my stuff up. And she's just saying shit to me, not like listening to me, sort of. You know, like, oh, the Wi-Fi, it doesn't work. I guess they have to and just kind of rambling, and it was just a little off. And there's an alligator, they just removed it, and there's a couple baby alligator, and just kind of. But it was only like 5 minutes and whatever, and her name was Tish. And I introduced myself as Steven, and, at the end, I'm like, all right, have a good night. And she didn't say nothing. And I just thought that was weird. Like, okay, or hey up, you too, or nothing. These are just little things that you do notice, and then kind of as things play out, you remember. So then the next day, I come out the next day, August 2nd, we'll say. And she's out there, and she's got a big dog, bigger dog. It was like a Shepherdy, but kind of that Basset Hound head, the ears like that, and cool looking dog. And he's barking, and she's standing right next to him. Not barking meanly, just barking like, dog. Not like pulling at the thing or anything. But I'm like, hey, Tish, how's it going? What? Hey, Tish, how's it going? What? And then finally, and the dog's right next to her. Like, she could have been like, I thought. And then finally he stopped and I'm like, hey, Tish, how's it going? What's your name? And I don't know about you, but we're neighbors. Sure, you can forget, but I don't know. I didn't forget her name. I'm like, Steven. And that was it. And again, I think that was the end of that conversation, And, then that night, she comes back at we're in the summer, so it was getting dark, probably 8:15. She comes home that night, and it's like 8 o'clock, and she breaks out and starts washing the outside of her camper at getting dark and just all just very demonstrative and stuff, and I didn't pay too much attention. I just thought the timing was odd because she doesn't leave. Well, I don't know anything about her, what she was doing work-wise, but she usually was around till the afternoon, as in that could have been done at 11 in the morning or something, would have seemed more normal. So anyway, so that was it. But she didn't talk to me, not another friggin' word the rest of the time until August, I think it was Thursday night, 29th or whatever. In between there, we didn't, you don't spend a lot of time outside here, during the day and shit. But one other time I heard she came out, let her dog out and was walking. I'm like, oh, your dog looks like he'd like to run around in the snow. And she just ignored it. So I'm like, that was about maybe mid-August. And so after that, I kind of I'm just going to kind of keep to myself. So now, flash forward to Thursday night. And I'm watching the Timcast or something. So it's about 9:30. I go into my bathroom and I keep the door open because I live by myself and it's tiny. And I don't have any lights on outside. I didn't even have any motion lights. And it's nice and dark. I like it because I go outside and I can see the friggin' Milky Way. And I hear a knock on my fucking door. And I'm kind of freaking out. I hadn't had any visitors. And I kind of just worry sometimes. I'm not doing anything weird or even have anything illegal or anything. But I just worry about, if you've seen any of my videos, you could be a little paranoid about getting an unwanted visit, but so I'm in the fucking bathroom, and then the knock again, and I'm like, whoa, so I got a good light. In fact, I'll get it to demonstrate because it's right here. So I grab my light, and it's a nice LED charger, it's got the button on the back here. And so I shine that out the window, and she's out there, and she walks away. So I have these bricks at the bottom of my thing, that I collected out of Ybor City. See, I say something like that, and that could have been illegal, because when I was Ubering, you go to Ybor City where you got to pick up the fucking spoiled brats from University of Tampa or just the weirdos Tampa residents. It's a pain in the ass. So you kind of wait. There's like a main street, and then there's a railroad track there, and it's all old factories, the cigar industry and stuff. And there's a lot of bricks along the road, and a lot of them are just broken up and sitting there. And I just started throwing a few in my car every night because I brought them home and I do shit with them out of my house. And then I brought some of them with me here. And like when I go back up to check on the cat or something or to see if there was mail, I'd grab a few that I had. And so anyway, because they come in handy. You put them under like the sewage, the the little pipe you use to go to your sewage, or I put a little thing under the doorstep, so you just, you kind of keep out of the mud and the water. So I'm standing there and she's kind of standing back where my window is, back here in my bedroom, smoking a cigarette. And she's like, "Oh man, I'm half drunk and I locked myself out of my camper and I'm just like, "Oh, that's a bummer." And she's just talking to me like, after not talking to me at all and ignoring me for like a month. And then she starts going into that. And she's like, "Yeah, George." Now, George, with a J, is the manager here at the resort. And she's like, "Yeah, George came to me and was talking to me today and telling me that we've had like 3 or 4 people who left here, who lived around me, and I'm the reason they left. They all..." And I thought she said I'm a slut. But I guess she said, like, everybody thinks I'm a slut. And it's like, right across the street, the guy who was living there, he invited me over one night, and the rumor was went over there in my lingerie. And then right next door, I got along with that guy great, but he went away and his brother was there, and that turned into a big incident. And she's just rambling this out. I wasn't asking any leading questions, nor did I ask anything that would have started down that path. She's just telling me this shit. And she's probably around my age. She looked a little beat up somewhat. Had that nice brand new CJ and a nice dog. And I mean, seemed all, to have money to pay for shit and stuff. But I wasn't interested in anything, and it quickly became evident to me that that's what she was maybe hinting at. She's talking about sex and lingerie and shit. And then she's like, and when I get like this, when I get drunk like this, I like I hit a pot. I don't really like pot. And I went over to the smoke shop over there by Walmart. And I'm like, "What is it, a medical?" Because I didn't know. I didn't really look. But no, one of those. So it's like that synthetic weed. And all I said was, "Oh, yeah, I heard that shit can make you a little crazy." Or some people flip out on that. I didn't at all hint that I like marijuana or smoke it or would be interested in, and I think she brought it up to see if I'd be like, "Yeah," or, "Oh, I'd check," whatever, and I didn't bite on nothing. And if this was all, wasn't thinking too deeply about any of it. I just wasn't interested. I wasn't interested in getting into anything weird. And she's like, and then she was like, "I was at the beach all day." And I'm like, "Oh, where? In Venice?" And I had been in Venice that day, too. And actually, I had a kind of a bad day because I was in the water and I got really, like, something. I don't know what it was, man. If it was something in the water, it didn't seem too red tidey, because that'll happen and I'll get a headache, but usually you get out of the water and it goes away fairly quickly. I like got out of that water and I was so tired. Like my energy level, like noticeable different. I've never had a feeling like this before. I was like, I didn't know if I could walk from where I was to my car. I was like, holy shit. Like I literally walked back to my car. I have one of those big straw hats. And I was just looking down in front of me and I couldn't even look around and shit. Like normally I'd walk back along the water and look for more shark's teeth. I just put my head down and walked to the car. And I was like, not sure I was going to make it. Then I got in my car and and Venice has some good restaurants. And I didn't even eat lunch there. I thought I was going to actually have to pull into a Publix parking lot and sleep in my car. I was legitimately scared to drive, that I wasn't going to be able to drive back to, it's like an hour drive back here to Arcadia. And it just concerned me because it felt like something was crashing in my body. Like the energy level was dropping. I'm like, I've never experienced anything like this. And I'm like, I was concerned, maybe some sort of organ failure that I just, I didn't know. It was scary. It was that scary. Like, and that, like, weird that I'm like, this is something I haven't experienced before. So anyway, I got back and finally it cleared up enough that on the way back I grabbed some Taco Bell. I ate that. So everything was cool. But anyway, I was like, oh, I was in Venice too. And I'm like, I go up looking for the Shark's teeth. She's like, me too. And, but then, she said she was all half drunk. So she drove back from Venice drunk, apparently, where I didn't. But anyway, so then finally she's like, well, I guess if I got out, I couldn't lock the keys in the trailer. I'm like, yeah, good point. All right, well, let me know how it goes. And she's like, yeah, if I can't get in, I'll be knocking at your door or something. So anyway, I go in, and then I sit down and I start thinking about it because it just left me uneasy. Then I'm thinking, so the manager of the place talked to her that day about her being the reason 3 or 4 people left, and it was all kind of her being shadily fucking horny, sexy, not sexy, like just weird shit like that. And I'm like, I just started thinking, I'm like, maybe she was trying to set something up where she was gonna try and make something happen and then call the cops or call Jorge on me to make it seem like she wasn't the bad person in any of that. And I didn't think about any of this while I was talking to her, but I thought about it very quickly after I got back into my trailer. And then I'm thinking, and the game today is be first. And I thought about calling the cops, and then I was like, oh, let me call George. So I called. It was only like 9:30, so I'm like, all right. And I was going to call him. And I call George, and he's like, oh yeah. I'm like, Tish? And he's like, oh yeah. So that was kind of reassuring because, it wasn't me, and this wasn't the first incident. And I just let him know what happened. And he's like, well, call the sheriff. It's good to... And I'm like, dude, I don't know if I really want to do that because, I haven't done nothing. So I didn't want to get involved with something official, So I'm like, I don't really want to do that, dude. And he's like, so he sent over the neighborhood watch, which was Becky and this guy, older guy, Joe, and his wife, two golf carts. And I hadn't thought of that there'd be one of those, and it's perfectly sensible. So they came over, and that was nice, and Joe's probably in his 80s or something, but he's like looking over at her place, and she's like all outside where she never had been before, sitting in her thing, keeping her door open to her. And he's like, oh yeah, a lot of run-ins with her, a lot of incidents. And her dog's savage. And something like flashed on my phone. Who knows what's going on there? Like in the camera area. And so I felt good because everybody I talked to that was involved and that I talked to about it was like, oh yeah, she's fucking been a problem from day one. And she'd been here 2 years. She did let me know that, like, on the first night. Because I asked her, that was one question I got in. I'm like, how long you been here? 2 years. So, so that all felt pretty good, like that everybody, like, she was a known problem. So I'm like, I'm not over playing my cards or exaggerating or nothing. But I got to tell you, it was very scary. Because I'm like I said, I hadn't done nothing. And next thing you know, you're like, all she has to do is call the fucking sheriff or the cops, and I'm out there trying to prove I didn't do nothing. And that's a scary feeling, because the last thing I ever want to do is go to jail. Haven't done it yet. Haven't done anything other than smoke pot in states where it's not legal that would ever put me in jail. And the fact that could put me in jail is absurd, but regardless, that's it. The only thing I've ever done that's technically illegal is buy and smoke grass in places where it wasn't legal. But I don't have any on me now, and I don't know where to buy it, and I don't look for it in Florida, so. So it's really scary. It gets real quick, you know? You're like, fuck, dude. Just sitting here. Next thing you know, I could be having to prove my fucking innocence for something I didn't even think about doing. So that sucked. And then the next day, George shows up and knocks on my tray, and he kind of stood to the side, knocked, and we went around to the front because we were back to back. Tish and myself, our trailers. And he tells me, he's like, yeah, I served her eviction notice. And I told her, and this was like Friday, and he's like, I told her to be gone by Tuesday, which will be tomorrow. And she left yesterday, Saturday, or 2 days ago, Saturday. Which I was surprised and happy. So she's gone, and now I got a new neighbor today, and they look like, I don't know. I don't mind the people being around and shit, but it does suck when you can hear their conversation. And then after that night, after that chick left, and after the neighborhood watch left, next thing you know, from like 11:30 till about 1 a.m., she's like sitting out right outside her trailer having loud conversations. And I'm like 10 feet away, 15, 20 feet, maybe at the most, 25 feet. Close enough that I could hear her talking, but I couldn't make out the words because I had my little fan. I got my white noise to help me sleep. And I didn't want to hear. I could have like snuck over and been real quiet and tried to hear, but I'm like, I don't care. I don't want any part of it. So that was also strange, So that's how that went down. And I'll tell you, the month before this incident, I was uneasy about staying here because of her. I was like, I just don't feel like every time I go out, if she was out, it'd just be weird. A couple times she like slammed her door, and then she never talked to me after that and ignored me. And I'd hear the door lock. I don't like being treated like I'm a fucking scumbag or I'm a criminal, because I'm not. I have a brother who treats me like that. Just a vibe of like, I've got to be watched or something. And that just aggravates the shit out of me. Because I'm not like that at all. So that's where we're at. So now I'm much more relaxed about staying here. Because I really like it. They got a nice pool. And they got shuffleboard courts and horseshoe pits and pool table. And they got all these leagues. They have a bingo that doesn't start until October when people start coming back. But I'm in like the storage area, like one side is all like trailers and boats and stuff, not a ton. And there's beautiful grass here that I can actually walk in barefoot. It's not all ant infested and dirt. And it's just beautiful. It's dark and it's just nice. I really like it. So now I feel better about staying. So I just need to get some money to pay for it. And so things are better. And I won't lie to you. It was weird watching her pack up. You start to feel bad. But I'm like, I didn't do all those previous incidents that made the one that I had the last straw, So I don't feel too bad because she's clearly crazy and nobody that was involved in this had anything good to say about her either. So, not the bad guy. So good old St. George. And if you don't know what's going on there, folks, over in England, with the rape gangs and just the general, the out-of-control immigration that they've got with these people who come over there, they're Muslims, and they make no effort at assimilation, and it's a big problem. And if you don't think that's coming to the United States of America, you're a fucking fool. That's going to be the war, man. Islam is a religion of intolerance. It's a fake religion. It's a religion of hate. Muhammad was not a good guy. He was a violent man, and their spread of religion has been through violence. And if once they get the majority in your area, your town, there's no I'm not playing along. And there's no such thing as a moderate Muslim either. Don't let them fool you. Do you understand that Sharia law, if a Muslim man kills a Christian, they do not suffer the same consequences as if a Christian were to kill a Muslim? Like, I believe it's kind of okay. And I may be wrong exactly on what the consequences are of that, but it is like that. Like, it's okay for a Muslim to do things to Christians that vice versa. they're not coming peacefully. So even if there is such a thing as a moderate Muslim, there's also the ones who have the extreme uh, interpretation of the Bible, and they're they're the ones who are going to become the mayor, and the moderates are going to cower to them too. So you're not going to, and this is just facts, man. You think I'm being mean, Islamophobic, or fuck all those terms and shit, a racist or anything. I'm not. This is reality, and start and look into it yourself, man. I can't stand this shit, and then and people kind of give you the impression that they think the shit you're seeing in the videos you're watching, you're too dumb to realize that they're racist or it's fake. So that's the next battle, man, and it's gonna be a war. A war for the fucking future of humanity. And it's kind of already started. And I'm of the belief myself, and this is something I haven't heard this from anybody, and I go on a lot of these chats and stuff on these channels, and I say this all the time. I believe one of the problems that Russia's hated for is that they are standing up for Christianity. They're the Orthodox Christians. And in most of Europe, man, they're closing churches. They're arresting you if you're engaging in Christian things, whereas any of the Muslims are being encouraged and not suffering consequences because all the fucking pathetic beta fucking leaders of these countries who are Christians are afraid to be perceived as anti-Muslim, and it's just absurd. And they won't let you fly the St. George Cross, the flag of England, in fucking England right now, or the Union Jack. You're considered a racist for flying your own, for the Stars and Stripes, essentially, And people believe that here. And so it's bad. And those European countries are all just rolling over for them. And it's not immigration, folks. They're not fleeing anything from their countries. They're coming to conquer. And that's not an exaggeration. And you have to wake up. And nobody wants to think this. This isn't like I'm like the first opportunity. I told you, I knew it. I've reached this point from paying attention because I've always been interested in the world news and stuff and events and stuff outside of my thing. Like I had a subscription to USA Today back in the 90s, which is kind of it was more of a national, and they had a nice world section in that. And that's why I did that, because I didn't really care about reading the Boston Globe, and I didn't give a shit what was going on in Somerville, which basically the same sort of shit. They don't call it the Republic, what did they call it? The Communist Republic of Cambridge, or whatever the fuck they called it. You know what I'm talking about. You do. But, so I've been hip to this, I've been watching it happen, and it's reaching ahead, and they're not backing down, and the governments of like Britain are not giving them any reason to, and I'm talking about the Muslims and stuff. And they're going after their own citizens. They put people in jail for tweets, in text, and emails, and for flying flags. A guy got arrested for saying "I love bacon." Not an exaggeration. There's a video of it. The police are holding back this line of people, and this guy comes up and he's like, "I love bacon." He didn't even like yell it crazily or nothing. They literally fucking arrested him, and it's on a video. It's not AI. It's absurd. Because you go on these sites, like the podcast of the Lotus Eaters is live every morning at 8 o'clock Eastern time. And they're in Britain. And all in the chat, people are just like, "I love bacon," and stuff, And the people who, you get these snooty people that, that complain about, the "let's go Brandon" and "fuck Joe Biden" shit. Fuck you, dude. That's part of dealing with it, and it's just kind of funny. And I don't like snobs like that who are like, "I'm above the swearing and those things." Fuck you. It's fun, and it's true, and it's a good way to fucking deal with that. I got a good friend who kind of was always like, "I don't like." Well, you're also a snob, so no offense, brother. I love you, but yeah. And So I'm all for that. I like it, and I like it. I like to, even when things are tense and like potentially dangerous, I still think it's okay to have a little chuckle and keep a little twinkle in your eye. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what I look at that. Kind of like a gallows humor. You're going into battle like in Braveheart, and that wasn't my inspiration, but I identify with that whole thing of like when they didn't they moon them or something or lift up their kilts or something, shit like that. Yeah, we're fucking potentially gonna die in the next 5 minutes, but we're still gonna fucking relax ourselves and have a little laugh or something. I believe in that very strongly. So, yeah, so that's where things stand. So I just say wake up and look into it yourself and be aware, man. And ask yourself this, and I don't know the answer to this where I am now or where I used to live. How many mosques are in your community? And how new are they? You know what I mean? Like if there's two and they're both like less than 5 years old, that's ding 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 ding. Or if there's three and there only used to be one, ding 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 ding. And they're not here. They're here to conquer. And they're playing the long game. It's a provable fact. They are reproducing at a rate like 3 times the rest, all the other religions or whatever. And they are playing the long game. They never forgot the Crusades and shit. And they, once they get the majority, man, it's already absurd that Ilhan Omar's in our Congress. How is it that Minnesota is the most fucked up state in our fucking country? I mean, granted, they were the only one that voted for Walter Mondale way back when Reagan won the first time, but all this shit, that crazy, the kid last week and George Floyd and just Tim Walz. I mean, what a fucking creepy dude that guy is. What a piece of shit. A fucking weirdo. Their mayor, just horrible shit. Minnesota. It's just bizarre. All those Midwest states, I don't trust any of them anymore. I know a guy from Wisconsin. He's the biggest fucking dirtbag I'll ever know. And I've hung out with him quite frequently. I met him in... Here's the deal with this dude. He's a Wisconsinite. He's as old as my oldest brother, so he's a lot older than me, but just a scumbag. But the day I met him when I went to Hawaii to work for a company. They were a national company, and I came out of Massachusetts to leave the job, and him and his friend came from Milwaukee area. And we became pretty fast friends. Here was the deal. I was the head of the job, and the rental car was mine, and I was not to share it with them, and I did not. Never let him take it one time. And he wanted to, but he quickly realized I was not going to let him, so he just glued on to me. He even told me one time. He's like, the only reason I'm hanging with you is because you have the vehicle. So, and I find that with criminals, they'll tell you. When they're telling a story about something, you listen because they may be admitting what they're doing to you or just in general. It may be like I know a guy or I used to, and a lot of times it turns out. So I believe in that, and I've learned a lot from dealing with this guy. But he was also thankful because I took him on a lot. I knew I did a lot of shit in Hawaii when I was there, and not much work. But he glommed on to me, and I took him on some shit that he was like, "Thank you so much," because I never would have done any of that. So, but anyway, the first night I was in Hawaii, his friend came with him. His friend worked with him. This guy was kind of in our business, the voice and dating business, but his friend was more like a helper. And these guys he was like 12 years older than me. His friend was probably more my age, this guy George, and he took me in the first night there. We were right on the road, the Waikiki, Kalakaua Avenue, right there in Waikiki Beach. We were in a hotel on the 2nd Street back, and it was just a madhouse every night. So me and his friend George went out for a walk the first night we were there. I'd already been there a week, and then these guys showed up. And he went and had to sleep off because he was a big cokehead, and he had to sleep off the coke binge he'd had before he went on this trip. And so me and George went out for a walk on the street there, and I remember we were in Chili's. There was a Chili's, and we were having a beer. And he told me straight up, now I've met this guy that day. And he's like, hey man, I'm just going to let you know, do not believe anything Todd tells you. And don't trust him. He'll tell you anything you want to hear to get what he wants. And I just remember going, George, you know what? As long as it doesn't affect me personally, I don't really give a shit. And my meaning with that was like, if it's about work shit, I don't really give a fuck. Well, let me tell you, it went past, he was obviously calling the boss on me like from like day one. He's just a spoiled brat. He's told me some stories from back up in his town where he fucked up some guy who was giving him shit. Like I guess he got harassed by a bunch of guys, like this group of guys, and he ended up, like, he went off to the army and came back, and one night he went out and chased them all, hunted them all down one by one with his brother, and he fucked up one guy so bad the guy never was right again, And his dad was friends with the judge and got him off. Just one of those situations where some fucking spoiled brat got off because his dad knew the judge. And he just told me that story like a month ago after knowing him for like 16 years, man. And there have been plenty of other shit that make me think he's a scumbag. And that really... And the other story he told me, he was telling me how he tells me a lot. I guess he gets a lot of poontang, and he's just telling me the story about how his best friend down here, where he lives over there, his best friend's wife, and their supposedly marriage is on the rocks, and talking about how she kind of wants to fuck him or whatever, and he's like, I'm not like that, but I guess they're getting divorced, so as soon as that's official, and I know him well enough that I'm sure. See, that's one of those things where they're telling you, I wouldn't do that. But anyway, either way, whether he's done it yet already or he's just waiting till the ink's dry for the divorce, still a fucking dirtbag. Because the plans are, I don't know. If I need to explain anything more about that being a dirtbaggy shit, then you're a dirtbag. And you know what? I don't believe he'll watch this video, and if he does, too bad, man. You're a fucking scumbag, and I've 16 years of scumbaggery, and I've had it. So, yeah, that's what this is. Fuck it, I don't care. The whole fucking world can watch this video, and that's the life I'm living right now. It's like I was telling my sister after that incident the other night. I really am a pretty straight-laced dude, other than smoking pot, and it's legal in many places, but it technically is illegal in other places where I do it. I don't do nothing. I hardly drink anymore. Like, I got a fucking a one Kona and one Budweiser in my cooler that I don't know when I bought them. So, I thankfully didn't have to quit drinking like that guy did, my friend there, or whatever he is, that guy, who I've never had a drink in his presence. He's like, because I guess he did way back, and things got so bad, he's never been able to have a drink again. But anyway, like, I don't even do that. Not that is legal, but I don't even, I'm pretty amazingly, even when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty fucking milquetoast. And, but I live here, and now, between that lady being nuts, and then one more thing about the night she came over here drunk and she's like, I'm Tish, by the way. I'm like, dude, I got it the first day. What's your name? That was weird. That kind of was, that actually was kind of towards the end, and that might have been one where I'm like, all right, we're dealing with total Section 9 here. So, but one thing I was saying to my sister, I was keeping my sister posted on this via text, and I'm just like, these, I love living in my RV, and I like this place, But one thing you don't think about at the RV level, is all these gated communities here in Florida where nice $600,000, $1 million houses and shit. And I've never envied that. It's a pain in the ass and it's pretty vapid life. There's some nice pools. I've cleaned pools and did pest control around them and stuff. But I wouldn't want to live in them. The people there are just nothing. I'm sorry, they just are. And it's what you had to do to get there. I've just never been willing to do. But the consequences of that is I'm living. I like everything about this lifestyle and everything, but you end up being around people that are down on that level. Like a lot of the younger people here look shady, and they're the ones that are kind of around now. Most of the retirees are still to come down because they're good old school people that had enough money to have a house at home in this here, and it's not the nicest place. It's a nicely well done place, but it's not super nice. It's all fifth wheels and RVs and like the permanent sort of trailers that have the thing around the end. They're not like being moved at all, but it's well kept and stuff. So it's much nicer than where I was. But you end up being around people that are just shady, and that's just one thing you don't really think of till you have an incident like that, and you're just like, damn. And it's weird because I kind of like this lifestyle, and I even like the weirdness somewhat, not like that weird, or dangerous when it involves me, but it can get just too real sometimes, and you are like, because I'm just not like that. I guess I like to observe it more than be involved in it, huh? So, but yeah, this is a long one. But, yeah, pretty interesting, huh? I guess to sum it up, a song that I got turned on to by Shiny Ribs, who's Kev Russell from the Gourds, who are a great band. Check out their stuff on YouTube and buy their CDs. But they broke up several years ago. They just did have a reunion show in Austin back like in April of this year. They broke up in like 2013, which is crazy because I've seen him a ton of times. I've seen him in Seattle at the Tractor Tavern. Seen him at Harper's Ferry in Boston. Saw him in Lafayette, Indiana. And several other places in between. And but Shiny Ribs is Kev Russell. And the two main guys were Jimmy Smith, who's really, I've talked about him before on this channel, and Kev Russell is the other guy. He wrote a lot of the songs. Those were the two main songwriters. But his band is Shiny Ribs, and check his videos out because he's a weird looking dude and very like a white looking dude, kind of heavy goatee, but he dances and wears these big. Just check it out and writes some good tunes. He does a lot of cover tunes, but one of his new songs that came across the other day, and I wasn't aware he had a new album, but it's called Shitty Music. And it's just the greatest line ever that I wish I had written. I'm a little disappointed in the verses, but the chorus line is, I don't want to hang around. I'm still learning the melody, but I don't want to hang around anyone listens to shitty music. And I wish I had written that line. Because I do feel that way. Nothing worse than people who listen to shitty music. So with that, over and out, my friends.